He was called the Wicked Pickett, a voice so raw, so powerful it could shake your soul. With hits like In the Midnight Hour and Mustang Sally, Wilson Pickett didn't just make music, he owned the stage. But behind that electrifying voice and stage persona was a man fighting battles that fame and fortune couldn't fix. Today, we're going deep into the abandoned home where it all faded, explore his shocking net worth, and uncover the tragic final years of a soul legend many have forgotten. You ready? Because this isn't just a tour. It's a story of rise, fall, and echoes that still linger in empty halls. The rise of a soul legend, Wilson Pickett wasn't born into fame. Born in 1941 in Prattville, Alabama, he was one of 11 children. His early life was shaped by gospel music and hardship. Pickett eventually moved to Detroit, where he joined a gospel group called the Violinaires, but his voice was just too powerful to be confined to church walls. He craved a bigger audience, and by the early 1960s, that craving turned into gold. He joined a group called the Falcons, and it was there that his iconic growl and stage energy began catching attention. But his real breakout came in 1965 with the release of In the Midnight Hour. That song, it changed everything. It charted across America and helped define Southern soul. People said it wasn't just his voice, it was the way he lived inside the lyrics. Every line was pain, fire, and attitude. Soon, he was working with legends like Steve Cropper, Dwayne Allman, and even performing at world stages. He had money, fame, and the swagger of a man who knew he earned it. But all empires have cracks, and his would slowly begin to show. Inside the abandoned home of a legend, decades after his fame peaked, Wilson Pickett's former house became a ghost of its past, a silent monument to a man who once commanded arenas. Located in Virginia, this house was more than bricks and wood. It was a retreat for Pickett when he wanted to escape the chaos of the music industry. But after his death, it became abandoned, neglected, and ultimately forgotten by many. Inside, you'd find rooms stripped of their vibrancy. Old carpets peeling, ceilings collapsed, family portraits fading from exposure and time. The echoes of music still seem to whisper through cracked walls, almost like his voice refuses to die. Old gold records once proudly displayed are now either stolen or collecting dust in boxes. Neighbors say the house used to have the energy of a party that never ended. But now, it feels like time simply walked out and never came back. The most chilling part, his piano still there, silent, a symbol of brilliance left to decay. Seeing it like this makes you ask, how could someone so great be forgotten so quickly? Stick around, because his fall wasn't just tragic, it was a storm of lawsuits, loneliness, and lost chances. The wealth that came and went at the height of his career, Wilson Pickett was raking in the big bucks. Royalties from hit singles, packed concerts, international tours. This man had real financial power. He was one of the highest paid soul artists in his time, and by the early 70s, his net worth was estimated to be in the millions. He lived fast, and that lifestyle reflected it. Expensive clothes, luxury cars, and properties that screamed success. But here's the thing about fast fame and fortune. If not handled wisely, it burns through your fingers. Pickett didn't have the best reputation when it came to money management. Lavish spending, personal issues, and a rapidly changing music industry meant the money started drying up. By the 1980s and 90s, he wasn't earning nearly as much, and his once booming career became a series of smaller shows, nostalgic reunions, and royalty checks that didn't stretch far. By the time of his death in 2006, Wilson Pickett's net worth was estimated at only $500,000, a fraction of what he once had. It's a bitter reminder fame doesn't last, and fortune doesn't follow you into the grave. But what really led to his fall from grace? What really happened behind those closed doors? A life of struggles, legal troubles, and isolation. As Wilson aged, the once unstoppable energy that drove his career began to turn inward. His personal life became more chaotic, filled with stories of erratic behavior, alcohol abuse, and legal battles. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Pickett found himself in headlines not for his music, but for his criminal charges. In one case, he was accused of threatening a neighbor while drunk and was even sentenced to jail time. There were also DUIs and other run-ins with the law that painted a darker picture of his final years. The man who once sang with fire and purpose was now spiraling. He became isolated, estranged from many in the industry, and surrounded by fewer and fewer people who genuinely cared about him. Even musically, he struggled to stay relevant. The soul scene had shifted, and younger artists were taking the spotlight. Labels weren't calling, tours slowed. The recognition he deserved never really arrived until after he died. It was a sad end for someone who gave so much to the world of music. It's almost like the world turned down the volume on Wilson Pickett and never turned it back up. The tragic death that silenced a soul giant, On January 19, 2006, the world lost one of its rawest voices. Wilson Pickett died of a heart attack at the age of 64 in Reston, Virginia. Despite his struggles, his death still shocked the music community. The man who once set stages ablaze with a scream and a microphone died quietly, away from the spotlight he once owned. He had been battling health issues for a few years, many tied to his hard, living lifestyle. Friends say that in the final months of his life, he had begun to find some peace. He was attending church more often, reconnecting with some of his children, and even talking about writing a memoir. But time ran out. His funeral was attended by many legends of the industry: Solomon Burke, Little Richard, and others who understood just how important Pickett was to soul music. And, while the tribute was heartfelt, it couldn't help but feel bittersweet, because for every cheer he received in death, there were years of silence and struggle that went ignored in life. This wasn't just a man who made hits, he defined an era. And yet, he left the world quietly, in a way that felt undeserving for someone of his caliber, legacy that refuses to be forgotten. Despite the tragedy, Wilson Pickett's legacy refuses to be erased. His voice lives on in countless soundtracks, samples, and playlists. Songs like Land of 1000 Dances are still blasted in stadiums. His influence is seen in artists from Bruce Springsteen to Bruno Mars, from the raw emotion of Otis Redding to the gritty funk of James Brown. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991, and in 2021, his hit, In the Midnight Hour, was selected for preservation in the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress. That's not just recognition, that's immortality. Even his abandoned home has become a point of interest for urban explorers and fans who quietly walk its halls in silence, paying homage. Every broken board and echoing room is a reminder a king once lived here. Maybe that's the most powerful part of his story. Even in abandonment, even after death, Wilson Pickett's soul still sings. And if you ever find yourself humming a tune at midnight, don't be surprised if it's his voice echoing through your mind. Wilson Pickett's life was more than just a series of hit records. It was a firestorm of talent, tragedy, and tenacity. He gave us everything he had, and in the end, asked for very little. His abandoned house stands as a haunting symbol of what fame can give and what it can so quickly take away. If this story moved you, share it. Keep his legacy alive. Don't let the world forget the Wicked Pickett. Drop a comment with your favorite Pickett song. Subscribe for more forgotten legends, abandoned places, and music history brought back to life. Because some voices should never fade.